Thanks for having me. I thought I'd start with telling you a little bit about my family of origin because it relates in a way maybe only I can see to the Grommet. I'm going to tell you about my brother, and this is him. And for Christmas, he gave me a DNA kit, and I thought it was a pretty cool gift. And then I opened the note and realized the note was the real gift. And I'll read it to you because we both have terrible handwriting. He said, let's face it, you were adopted. Many things point to this insidious secret. You loomed for a hobby. He means weave, but loomed. You ran away from home after 8th grade, and you buy good special occasion cards, and you can't sing. And so he said, let's get this over with. Love, your brother. And he slashed that out and made that friend. So I think a lot about human connections. And this business that I've founded has everything to do with human connections. And I hope I can illustrate why that is and how that gets expressed at the Grommet. These people, for instance, have a really powerful bond, even though they've never met. And I'm going to hopefully show you what that bond is by introducing you to them. This is Eugene Zablotsky. He's a healthcare consultant, and he invented the Bite Keeper, which uses heat and vibration to heal bug bites. This is Denise Assagai of Chum. She's a yogi and an avid fitness guru in California. And just this morning at 6 a.m., I used my Chum mat in yoga to give me a little bit of padding on my knees. Christian is actually in Edinburgh, Scotland, and he and his wife have a home-based business as education consultants. Now they're pursuing a line of backyard pizza ovens called Uni. Vanessa Ellington, she actually was a professional basketball player, and she's based in Toronto, and she now is working on a line of games. This was her first game, which is essentially like Scrabble with numbers. Dr. David Meadows and his son Derek created the company PureWine. You see that little wand there leaning against the glass. What that does, you swirl it in a glass of wine, and it removes all the bad stuff that makes you feel terrible, the histamines and the sulfites. And this is Bonnie Tyler. She's based in Connecticut, and she's a web designer. And so she's been an entrepreneur for a while. And one day she was heading out to a party and was supposed to bring deviled eggs. And she got tied up at work, was running late, and basically failed. She couldn't peel all the eggs on time. She had to bring potato chips. So she was frustrated by that and decided to sort of figure out how commercial egg peelers peel eggs. And that's exactly what that little guy does there. It's a magical little simple non-electrical device that does that. And in some ways, Bonnie represents this connection to these other folks better than almost anyone I just showed you, because she came from a very different sort of digital world. And when she wanted to prototype this device, she signed up for a 3D printing class at her local library. I understand some of you, at least Ashley, is from your own area. You have maker studios yourselves and help students with this. Anyway, she signed up for a 3D printing class. Bonnie walks in. She's 76 years old. She sits down waiting for the instructor. And the instructor walks in, and he is 11 years old. And that connection across the generations, and I'm sure you've already figured out that the connection between all of these people, this drive to make, is powerful, enduring, and as deeply human as any connection could possibly be. And that's what all these people share. They've created something from their own minds and their own hands. And I'm finding, as I just released this book literally a month ago tomorrow, that there's an audience for this book that I did not expect. I expected the folks I just showed you more or less to be the audience, and I'm hearing at least that about half of the purchases are for gifts. In fact, your son is going to get a gift himself, Sanjay, and he represents a behavior that I did not see coming, in that this desire to create and this ability to do so from a very young age is something that many, many people are wanting to encourage. So it's a big graduation gift right now, surprising to me. And this is maybe the reason. This is, statistically sort of backed up by the fact that 3/4 of high school students say they want to start a business. The other things that are happening in our world that we're very familiar with, these are new stats, so out of Kickstarter, they just had their 10th birthday. And can you imagine $4.3 billion of participation in this kind of thing, projects, has been unlocked by the mere ability of a platform to capture that, to capture people's imaginations. The trend in patent applications is also a statistical backup to this claim I'm going to try to prove to you that there are better, more powerful products coming from small businesses than we've ever seen before. So you can see the uptick there largely around the economic crisis. The big line, the big vertical line is China, and the US is the blue line. And as you know, Google probably owns more patents than anyone in the US, and these are a hard thing to pull off. These are not lightweight activities, they are not projects, these are serious activities. And I want to tell you a little bit about why I threw over my life and my career to pursue this business called the Grommet. And it actually, in some ways, was born during my time in a big company. I was working at Play School just after I worked in this building for Kids and Stride Right. And I noticed that our best new toy ideas never made it to market. They would just fall off the table and never get produced, and that made no sense to me. We had great R&D capability. And I went to my boss, who was the person I met here, Meg Whitman, who's since become the famous Meg Whitman of Hewlett-Packard and eBay, but she was president of Play School at the time, and it was the third time I had been working for her. And she said to me, Jules, I said, like, this makes no sense. And she said, here's the deal. We used to have a really rich level of distribution and specialty independent mom and pop regional stores that picked up all our new product, and they were our farm league, and we lost our farm league. So today, if Google, at this time the stores that were relevant were Kmart, Target, Toys R Us, or Walmart don't want it, then we can't make it. And like many entrepreneurs, sort of the seed of being pissed off sort of like sat in my, the back of my consciousness, and ultimately led to my starting the business. And this is our mission. It's to help you discover innovative products, primarily from small products, and help them succeed, to level the playing field for them. And along the way, we have discovered, I'm going to show you some of our golden oldies. Many products all started as small businesses that became household names in many cases. There's probably a Swell water bottle in this room. That's what Fitbit looked like when we launched it in 2011. It was our second IoT product. This is what Idea Paint is today, but it was a Babson College project at the time we launched it. They didn't even have packaging yet. This is Little Bits, an MIT-born product, engineering toy for kids. This was invented by Abe, a grandfather, 83 years old, Bananagrams. He wanted to speed up Scrabble. OtterBox, quite often our products follow some other trend, so in this case, protecting smartphones that emerged during the tenure of the Grommet. We're 10 years old. This is Simply Safe. If you listen to podcasts, they're pummeling you right now with advertising, and this was our first IoT product, born here, and it's a portable home security system. So along the way, many companies, they all start small. Every brilliant idea has to start somewhere, and quite often they start in very small companies. So I'm making the claim that small is the new big, and I want to show you some of the reasons why this is happening, because it's largely invisible to people unless you're in a seat like mine. First of all, I've already told you I believe that human creativity is endless, and this was a bet that we had to make at the beginning of the business. When we started, the biggest question we got was, when are you going to run out of ideas? And I was pretty sure I had a good base for belief, and I could prove to myself at least that was not an issue. But I can tell you 10 years later, definitively not an issue. And we hadn't even launched yet. We put up a landing page and just said what we were going to do, and people started flowing in. And every single week I see a product that blows the top of my head off. We launch 6 a week, and there's always at least one where I didn't even know I had the problem, and suddenly there's a solution for it, or there's a new technology or business model that I find super inspiring. So I can definitively say we'll never run out of ideas. This is what our funnel looks like. We look at 200 to 300 ideas a week, and not all of them are worthy. but about 30 of them are super interesting enough for us to actually get a sample and to test it. So just to give you a sense of like where we play, if this picture frame came in the 300, it would not be a grommet. It really is just what it looks like, just a picture frame. But if the Aura, as it did, came in, a connected picture frame, it is a grommet. So just to give you a sense of the range of what we might see and where we might land. So when we get down to the 30, as I mentioned, we're testing all of the product, which is not true in e-commerce. So the majority of products you would see on marketplaces have never been touched by a human being at that company or seen. So what we're looking for, does the product work? That's table stakes. Is it living up to its promises? Is the company honest about its claims? Because there are values behind our products that are distinctive. They might be making a claim about being a social enterprise or a sustainably produced product, or that there is an underrepresented entrepreneur behind the product. And we want to make sure that's true because we're going to back these products with their own reputation. And then is a company ready for success? At this point, we have 3 million people who look at what we launch every day, so we can move markets in an hour for any product. And so we need to know they're ready for success. And if they're not, we'll wait. It's okay, but we don't want to slam somebody and disappoint the whole world. If you did the math, we launch about 3% of what we see every year. And I'm showing you these numbers because while I'm making the claim that these products are more powerful than perhaps some of the alternatives, some of these stats I'm going to show you also support the claim that I'm making about quality. So within 1 hour, we can find out whether something's going to be a hit, no matter where it comes from. And our Net Promoter Score, if you're familiar with that, is always hovering in the high 70s. Amazon would be in the mid-40s. Your cable company would be in the negatives, and Apple's in the high 70s as well, just to give you a sense of the range. Something also that's interesting, we did a study recently, and 69% of people told us that they would like to support companies, products from small businesses. And 67% of the people we talked to said that they felt guilty about the products they bought and where they came from. Our return rate is 3%. To give you perspective on this, when I first modeled the business, I expected it to be 15%. I thought unknown products, people are solving problems in new ways, there could be a lot of disappointment, there could be a very high return rate. I really didn't know what to expect. Day in, day out, 3%. And typical e-commerce rates are double digit. In fact, we did something last year that scared me. We removed the time limit on a return. You can return, kind of like LLB now, you can return a product at any time to the Grommet. I thought, well, there goes my favorite stat, right? Suddenly it's going to be something much bigger. And it actually went down. So quality. These companies can produce products that make people happy and satisfy their needs. So I'm, again, putting a stake in the ground. Human creativity is endless. But there are other reasons that are bigger than these companies. Number two is that larger companies have gone into a defense mode. And I'm going to tell you the story about Irina and Jean. Irina and Jean worked at Unilever, one of the large global consumer packaged goods companies. And they had the idea for an affordable line of children's personal care products, shampoos and the like. It's a great idea. It was a great idea. Unilever executives understood it. There was no such thing on the market. But they said no. Irina and Jean were told no because Unilever is very Darwinian, as are most large consumer packaged goods companies when it comes to new products. They believe if they introduce something new, something they already sell will have to come off the shelves. They don't think about stealing share. They assume they're going to cannibalize their own business. And so Irina and Jean were told to prove that this would be $100 million in revenue in 1 year, or it wasn't worth it. And so Irina and Jean took their show on the road and created the line of products you see here, Fresh Monster. I'm going to talk a lot about CPG. It's not where we operate. We operate in outdoor gear, in toys, in tech, in kitchen gadgets, and tools, but those are not very well metriced industries compared to CPG, food, grocery, personal care, health products. And I actually consider CPG a lagging indicator. Those are not businesses that move super quickly, but a lot is happening in this area. $17 billion in revenue is transferred from large to small since 2013, but probably even more impressive to me is that in grocery, in food, 19% of market share has been taken from the big guys by the little guys in the last 6 years. I would not have predicted that because food is something you ingest. You're choosing to trust a company over a company you already know and have experienced. You can speculate why. I think a lot of it has to do with the larger companies losing sight of what customers actually want in food, whether it's health or lifestyle. It could be also just the thing I mentioned earlier, the idea that they can innovate in areas in a new way. R&D as a percentage of revenue in CPG has been hammered. So Google, I hope this is still correct, 15% of revenue is devoted to R&D. A lot of you in this room probably are part of that little pie slice at Google. But look at the guys on the other side, Pepsi at 1%. We launched SodaStream, and it was bought last year for $3.4 billion. Pepsi could have done that, should have done that, but a little company did. For these companies, quite frankly, at this point, M&A, mergers and acquisition, are really R&D to these companies. So the one on the left and the one on the right are companies that we launched in the middle. Dollar Shave Club, quite prominent in the direct-to-consumer arena, and just 2 weeks ago, their competitor, Harry Shave, was also bought. Number 4, and final reason I'm going to talk about how big companies are sort of opening up their flanks, is that it's more of a story about retail, frankly. The Walmart business model of having fewer suppliers and basically squeezing them harder to have tighter supply chains and better margins was a brilliant business model, until it wasn't, in that everybody else adopted it as well. And so retail became a sea of sameness and a sea of price promotion. It's a drug. All of us expect discounts now. And that put a lot of pressure on the ability to innovate new products. This article was in the Wall Street Journal recently, and one of the examples was Johnson & Johnson only just 18 months ago considered making an all-natural baby shampoo. I mean, that's insane, right? There are parents in that company who knew better, who knew that that was a good opportunity. But when you're sort of running for your life, you know, trying to just survive in this tough retail environment, you might not be so innovative. So retail became this. Amazon was able to walk in and become the place of choice to buy commodities. But she walked in too, and a whole ecosystem formed around people who create products, and that was the bet I placed. I would give a lot of credit to the crowdfunding platforms, because when Kickstarter and Indiegogo emerged, a lot of companies recognized the opportunity to serve a small business, whether it's Shopify, whether it's Shipwire for enterprise level shipping, whether it's 3D printing becoming democratized. It's almost like during the gold rush when people probably made more money selling blue jeans and picks than panning for gold. An ecosystem forms around big opportunities, and that's what's happened here. So our makers, I want to tell you a little bit more about them. In our study, they have only 10% of them have any professional experience in creating a product. It's quite hopeful, actually, because they're teachers, they're dentists, they're plumbers, they're high school students, but they have this idea. And I would tell you, if you have a product idea and you can't find any evidence of someone doing it, don't assume it's a bad idea. It's just possibly that you haven't done it yet. I see that every single day. So, but it's not an easy road, and this is the reason why I wrote the book. These businesses are complex, and they require 16 different competencies, because with all the advantages these companies have for creating the product, which is definitive, I'm claiming that as a fact, the minute they're in market, they are competing with the large companies who do have good competencies in basically most of these business functions, and they have to quick in a hurry figure them out. And the book, frankly, there's no book that teaches people this until this book. It is the book on that subject. I've seen 3,000 makers be launched. I've seen the mistakes and the triumphs they've had, and I wanted to basically cut 2 years of pain and suffering out of the future generations of makers. But I'm going to tell you, just in case you have no ambition to start a company or you don't want to read the book, there are some quick, I don't want you to, don't make these mistakes or don't miss these lessons, type 5 lessons. So first of all, I think it's really important to go big or go home. I really get disturbed when I see somebody going after a niche market. If they want to create this as their full-time livelihood, side hustle, no problem. But you have to be a genius to sort of hit it right out of the gate with your first product. And you also need a full line of products to have real retail acceptance. So you want to go after a very large target market, which is entirely a quantifiable exercise. And there are great data sources to help you do that. And later, if you want to know what I think about that, I can tell you more ideas there. So, but I want to give you some sort of scale of what I mean by big here. And this is a huge range I'm going to show you. There's a case about our company at Harvard Business School, and I show up when they teach the case. And then they're using the book in a couple of programs already too. So we're teaching the case last month, and I showed up. And the students were kind of abstract. They really didn't have a sense of the kind of companies we deal with. So I pulled 3 products out of my purse, my yellow purse over there. These 3 products are always with me. And I just wanted to make it sort of tangible. And as I pulled the products out, I sort of predicted what the size and scale of the company could be. And that was the number one thing that sort of blew their minds. No matter what else I said, they might have forgotten, but they wanted to know how I understood this. So I'm going to just do it for you, too, show you these 3 products. So this one is Pod Pockets, and it's essentially a case for your AirPods. I didn't even want AirPods till this product came out because I knew I'd lose them, right? It's a slippery little case, and it looks so generic. This silicone case holds it, and with a little hook, keeps it in my bag. And I predicted 5 million. This is the cap for this company, which is a success for this company. I'm not saying that's bad, but there are a couple reasons why this company probably can't go further unless they do more. So one is, if you're on Instagram, you're going to see a heck of a lot of knockoffs of this product already because there's no intellectual property behind this product. And second of all, the biggest reason I would say is this company needs to create other products. It won't have real traction at retail until it can command some presence at retail as well. So 5 million, that may be great for the entrepreneur. And she confirmed this number. This is about what she expects as well. This one, I'm going to call it 50 million. And the reason why I say that, I actually think it could be quite a bit bigger, but there's a problem. The product works brilliantly, but it costs $1.60 a wand. We have a lot of experience in pricing, and my own contention is the value to a larger consumer set would be $1. That's what people would really want to pay for this wand, and their cost of goods sold is 40 cents right now, and it really needs to be about 20 cents for them to get this product down to $1. And they can see a path to 30, so partway, but not all the way. Peeps. This is a carbon fiber glasses cleaner, sunglasses, readers, anything. And this company is called Carbon Clean, and they have 2 products. The other one's in that circle, and it's essentially the same technology used in almost a swiper for phones or your tablets. And this company, it might surprise you, it's a 10-person company. Last year had $630 million in sales, just these 2 products. And let me tell you why. First of all, it's an experienced entrepreneur, and he actually had used this technology, sold this technology within the space system because you can have liquids and cloths floating around in space. So he basically miniaturized this technology, and he owns the IP. So an experienced entrepreneur with deep pockets as well as IP, those things are all really important. But probably the equal, if not bigger, reason why this product has blown up is that they have a great route to market distribution. So they have 2 beyond the Grommet. It's done really well with us too. But the eyeglass stores carry the Peeps, and device stores carry the other Carbon Clean product. And the people, especially at the phone stores, are on commission. So they sell you a phone, they whip out the device, it's $14.99, they clean it, and then you say, what color do you want? And who doesn't buy one, right? It just performed a miracle in front of you. And same with the Peeps. If you go into a Pearl Vision or another eyeglass store, there's a ready sales force who's the perfect sales force to sell this product, and they're motivated to. So this is a really important part of the entrepreneurial journey, is if you can find some special route to market, that can make all the difference for you, and this company has. Lesson number 2, name your company after your vision, not your first product. My friend Leah Busquet started Run My Errand. She started it because she ran out of dog food, and that was her initial thought, was people could use a ready workforce to help them run errands. And then her customers actually expanded the vision, to be fair, because they started using it for business tasks and handyman stuff. And especially for building IKEA furniture. So she really needed to rename the company, and it was expensive. So try to see that up front. Name the company after your success, not your first sort of accomplishment. Lesson number 3, protect your intellectual property. And this one has become way more important in our 10 years operating the business. I would not have necessarily I would have put it on the list, but it's super high right now for a really specific reason, and that is in 2015, Amazon got very concerned about Alibaba and wanted to study the Chinese supply chain. And so they changed a rule globally which removed the need to have a domestic representative between a distant entity and the home market, whatever home market it is, the US, let's say. And it was super successful. What happened now is in the EU and in the US, 25% of the listings on Amazon come straight from a Chinese factory. And I think Jeff Bezos may be the best business person ever born. I have mad respect for him. But there was a huge unintended consequence, which was that most of those products are fraud, counterfeit products, or copycat, but counterfeit is the really dangerous one. So our makers are finding their own company names and their own photos and their own trademarks on packages being shipped from China with fake products in them. Their own listings are being hijacked. And Amazon executives can't even tell the difference. They went from a fraud department of 7 people and 15 to hundreds now. So it's become much harder for our companies to defend themselves because it's a game of whack-a-mole on Amazon too, and you have a 25% chance of buying a fraudulent product now on Amazon as well. And when you do, you're mad at the original company. You're not mad at Amazon. You don't know you bought a faker, and there can go this hard-earned business down the tubes. Prototypes are true serum in that I'm an industrial designer, and the pros, and many of you would intimately understand this because of your jobs, we stay in as iterative, as rapid fire a phase of prototyping as we can, and we stay there as long as possible in low fidelity paper, cardboard, clay, cookable prototypes, whatever it takes to get your idea in front of as many people as possible. It's so important to stay here as long as possible, to know you have a market. Because I really believe that you shouldn't fall in love with your ideas until strangers do. I'll tell you a really great thing that one of our makers does, the way she tests her prototypes. Her name is Joelle Mertz. She has a kitchen gadget, and she lives in LA. And the first time she had a prototype, she wanted to show people. She was planning to go to the airport for a family trip, and she told her family she'd be going a few hours early, and she took her prototype and a big stack of surveys on clipboards. And she started traveling from gate to gate with her prototype and the surveys, never revealing she was the creator. You never should say that. You always want to be a stranger, market research man or lady, because people be nice to you if they know you made the product. And the gates change over every hour. She just kept doing that. And people want to talk to you, right? They're so bored at the airport. And this became her playbook for market research with prototypes. She now just buys like a $29 Spirit ticket, goes to LAX, hangs out for the day. I alluded to this earlier. Don't lose money on every unit. So the rule of thumb is if your cost of goods sold, that means what your product costs you, including packaging, shipped to the distribution center, if it's 20% of your retail price or less, you probably have a business, or a business you can make money on. You have to allow for either a retail margin if you're going to sell directly through retail, or if you're going to sell directly to consumer, that same amount of margin will go into marketing. So I can't stand it when the direct-to-consumer companies have ads about cutting out the middleman as though that makes their product more affordable. It's not true. That ad costs money. And retailers have customers that they spent money for. Either way, you're going to pay. So it's 20%. I'm going to wrap up here, and I'm going to leave you with a couple of thoughts. One is we organize our products by personal values. This represents the ones that our community cares about. And I encourage you to think about what you really care about, whether it's supporting underrepresented entrepreneurs like vets, or women, or people of color, or it's having a sustainable lifestyle. I'm sure you think about these things, but think about them very directly in relation to your purchases. We call this citizen commerce, acting about what you care about and creating the world you want to live in. think about if you're like most of us, 50% of us have a Prime account and you shop on Amazon once a week. Think about maybe transferring some of that to a legitimate retailer. Well, they're not illegitimate, but a retailer who, traditionally they've stood between us and fakers, right? Think about buying from the maker themselves. Think about buying from a retailer as opposed to Amazon. You'll have a much better shot of getting the original product, but you'll also be supporting innovation, because at this point I believe that Amazon is the largest nut destroyer of innovation in American history. And then finally, take 10% of what you have at your disposal and direct it that way at whatever you care about. Now, you're not going to buy, you can't take 90% of your budget, because you're not going to buy a car necessarily from a small business that, is sort of values first. But 10%, anybody can do that, and it's incredibly powerful. It makes a difference between these companies existing and not. And having lived this for 10 years, I can tell you we all should want these companies to exist. They're in it for the right reasons. Finally, your time is your most valuable asset. Thank you for spending it with me and learning about these companies with real heart, soul, and better products. It just takes 10% to tip the scales for them. Thank you.
You listed those 16 sort of competencies that people need. Have you seen that change in the last decade in terms of which ones are becoming, you mentioned sort of intellectual capital, intellectual property.
Yeah.
Has that shifted over time from where it started?
Yeah, because it was much harder to get a fake product into the market because retailers wouldn't buy it. You had to build the business, and brand and awareness and all that. And you don't, now Amazon, there's such an ecosystem around figuring out what sells there, a beautiful ecosystem that it's super easy for somebody who wants to knock someone off or be a counterfeiter to figure out what's worth counterfeiting. That is the big change there. I would say financing's gotten easier, and that's thank you crowdfunding. It's the gift that keeps on giving. I don't consider it, just to be clear on that, a lot of people see that as a great market test, and I actually don't see it that way. It's an indicator, but there are two reasons why it's not a perfect match to your likely customers. One is the products are usually discounted, and a discounted price is no test of the market anywhere. And then secondly, the people who hang out on Kickstarter or Indiegogo don't actually represent the sort of guerrilla of consumer products, the people who are the main market. So it can be, like I said, it's directional. But what is really great for in our world, because 25% of our products are crowdfunded, is by the time a company's gotten through that, which I consider essentially a project, a really hard project, but it is like a mini taste of the business. You have to run essentially a really massive marketing campaign, and you have to figure out your operations and ship and package and all those things. So for us, when we see somebody have a successful campaign, it's more about we've seen the company be pressure tested, and that's what we love about crowdfunding, which emerged after we started the Grommet. So it's been a wonderful thing. It's been a wonderful thing for us. In some ways, I think marketing is always the hardest thing of all. It's just really hard to break through in a crowded world. Everywhere I was at Maker Faire Saturday speaking, and it's like fire-breathing dragons. Everywhere I go, there's something going on. The one thing I would say, there's always an emerging platform that's interesting for our companies. Right now, I would say it's Instagram, not that it's emerging, but I think they can make some hay on there in a way. It was Facebook. So there's always something that our makers can kind of arbitrage ahead of the big guys at times. And so sometimes there's an in on marketing, and it always shifts.
Early on, you mentioned that you evaluate companies to see if they're ready for the big push. Go more on how you evaluate that, and if they're not ready yet, do you ever revisit them, and how does that process work?
We do revisit them. It's usually a question of how well they're capitalized and if they have inventory at the level we need it. So we'll do a pre-launch test of something and to try to predict what the inventory will be, and if it's going to outstrip them, and we know that for a fact, then we will wait. There could be other reasons we might wait. I'm thinking of the product not being ready. So do any of you know Sugru? It's an air dry silicone putty. A couple nods over there. You need it. It's like having, WD-40, you need that in your house. Sugaru's the same. You use it to fix, let's say, your cord phrase on your charger. You can sort of just modify and fix it, create a little shell. I've fixed a sculpture with it. I fixed a lamp with it. I have a really big ring from my dad, and I sort of like custom fit it. Because air dry, you can make anything you want out of it. But Jane, the Irish entrepreneur who created the product, she's a chemist. She's not a product person at all. And her first iteration, this product, remember, it air dries, was in 2-pound bricks. Nobody needs two. You guys have sugar. You do not need to. What would you ever do with 2 pounds? We had to wait until she made it into a consumer-friendly format. It comes in these little tiny packets. You need like the size of a marble for most projects. You don't need a lot of it. So we'll wait in those kind of cases as well. Thanks, guys.